everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Bones and Stones. Today we have Ruby Ann Birin, who's a recent recipient of the 200 Young South Africans from the Mail and Guardian, and who's currently doing her PhD at the University of Oxford. Hi, Ruby Ann. Nice to have you, and thanks for joining us. I
Thanks
thought
for having
maybe
me.
if we could just to kick things off, can you tell us a bit about the award and how you won that and how you got entered into the competition, or how does it all work?
So I got awarded the Mail and Guardian Young 200 South Africans for 2020. And I think I was nominated by a friend actually from an excavation I did in Israel, and she lives in America. So I know she definitely not nominated me. Whether I had other nominators, I don't know. But she didn't have any of my South African details and was like messaging me, what do I put your email address for? But there's a call out every March, April time for people to be nominated in different categories or different fields. And my name was submitted with the profile, and then they contact you to either by phone. I was contacted by email to just ask you a couple of questions and a questionnaire and get a better feel of who you are and submit almost a CV, but in their very nice mandated form. And then you don't hear anything for months and you kind of just forget about it. And I kind of forgot about it, and then I got a couple of weeks ago, they were like, "Oh, you're a finalist. Please send us a video of yourself." So that's
Cool.
what I did. And then you wait until the announcement, and it was very exciting. I found out you told to keep it very quiet up until the day, and it was really nice going onto Twitter and just seeing so many like friends and colleagues who I admire so much who were also finalists and also landed up getting it. It was just really supportive to see other women in science and people who I really admire their research and their work ethic to be nominated with them.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. It's a really great achievement. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's four, four winners from the paleosciences field, and all of them are women?
Five. Yeah.
Five. And
Yeah.
all of them. No, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So it's a really great achievement for the
Yeah.
discipline as well. Matt, you've got
Yeah.
a question too there.
Sorry, I think my dog had a question there. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear him barking in the background there. Sorry, I forgot to close the door. Ruby, thanks very much for joining us today. It's great to hear about this. And I was having a look at some of the other contestants and stuff, and it really is fantastic how the kind of categories are broken down. But what I wanted to find out though is in terms of how you qualified specifically. So, if I look at maybe some of the other people who qualified in paleo sciences, you all had you came from different backgrounds and stuff. So what was your kind of edge in terms of how you think you got nominated and kind of your contribution?
So I think one of the things is I'm one of the few people working in luminescence dating and public engagement surrounding it. And I'm quite passionate about ensuring that there's understanding both within the archaeological community and public science community about how science works and how that intersects with archaeology, and really breaking things down in easy understandable words, which I might not be doing as well right now. But I think there was just a lot of mixtures of different things. I have my toe in a lot of different pools. And so I think it was just a mixture of that. They intrigued them in me. And then when they were interviewing me, finding out about more my science engagement work and also my passion for African archaeology and ensuring that it is equitable and accessible to a broader community through engagement projects.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think maybe we can, that's fascinating, your science engagement side of things. Could you chat more a bit about that? I think that's really cool and really interesting. And we've had quite a few conversations on our channel already about science engagement, community engagement, and so on. So it'd be really cool to hear what you've been up to as well.
Yeah. So what I've done, it's up until my PhD, I haven't launched a formal project, and I am hoping that part of my PhD will be launching a more formalized side of this. But I've done talks for like schools. I've gone into different schools and just spoken to the children about the projects. I helped design a not super successful holiday program for the Origin Center, but I've used those programs that I designed for them with other students and kids. For one example is not even with science engagement, but just archaeology. I was super privileged to be a micro intern. So that's a 1-week internship at the Pitt Rivers Museum in
Oh, wow.
Oxford. And I was working on a nice cup of tea project, which was looking at the transatlantic slave trade. And when I was there, had access to a huge range of incredible photographs that are just sitting in their archives. And I have been working with them, maybe not for the last 6 months. There's been a pandemic and thesis write-up and things. But when I have free time, I've been trying to help them digitize it and get their collection online.
Okay.
So that just collections that are in other spaces are available to the people who they are relevant to. So it's not so much as a full-time job or formalized thing that I've done, but more taking every opportunity, and when I have an opportunity to push it and engage with it. I have done I can't even think of the name right now, and it's actually where I met with both the Kims for the first time. The 3 minutes, having a complete blank. Sorry, this happens to me more and more as the pandemic goes on.
Exactly,
but it's a 3-minute science competition where you have to explain a scientific concept or discovery without using jargon or slides or anything. And I've done that in SA and in Oxford, where I dress up in full princess garb, and instead of wearing a fancy dress, I wear a lab coat, and I discuss being a scientific princess, which is just a fun way to access people and discuss concepts that maybe seem inaccessible to a large audience.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember I was at a school once doing a talk on rock art, actually, for like 10-year-olds or something. And I said stratigraphy, and then I was like, oh no, how am I going to explain stratigraphy? And then I used, kids always throw their dirty clothes on the floor. So I used your pile of clothes that you throw every day on the floor as an explanation for stratigraphy. It seemed to work. So, explaining things like that to people who aren't familiar with it is a good way to hone that skill. And the Pitt Rivers, I mean, that's an incredible museum. When I was over there and Matt came to visit, I took him there and we spent some good time there looking at the shrunken heads and all that kind of stuff. It's wow, what a cool place.
They've actually just removed the shrunken heads this week.
I have that. Oh, really? Okay.
They've removed all human remains and are going to be doing a review on the appropriate display and stuff.
It kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think those kind of displays are probably need revision. Given everything that's happened and what we know now. But anyway, let's chat a bit about your research though, because that's sort of part of the reason why you're here as well. So you've been doing a lot in luminescence dating. So before we started, you explained to us your honors at Bokoni, your work in the ESA, now moving on to the MSA. Can you give us a bit of a background to the kind of work that you've been doing?
Yeah, so my work started off as a lab tech at Wits with Mary Evans, and I did geology my first year. Wasn't very good at geology, but Mary was fantastic. And the same week that we were learning about different dating techniques, Mary mentioned she has a lab, and I just very ashamedly, but possibly quite timidly, knocked on her door and was like, I want to see your lab. And I somehow from that became her lab tech for a couple of years, and just learning how to process samples. So by the time I got to my honors, I was really keen to run my own project with it. And Alex Skuman had some pottery and sediment samples from one of the earlier homesteads at Bokoni. And that's sort of how I got from moving from processing and prepping samples into actually understanding the science and running it. Part of the reason I went into luminescence is I couldn't really pick a period that I liked or a space that I liked. And I had so many interests in different places. And I thought, okay, if I pick a technique, then I can, and especially one that's broad ranging like luminescence, which is 200,000 years plus, I could jump around and explore all my different interests and different projects, which is sort of what I've been doing now. So went to Oxford last year for my master's, and I had a lecture, and at the end they mentioned, oh, we've got these other samples to try out this new luminescence technique called IRRF, which uses feldspar instead of quartz. And I thought, oh, Wonderwerk, that's a cool site. And I decided to move to the ESA a bit. And now I'm shifting to the MSA and more exploring the interior of Southern Africa and trying to pin down a chronology for sites. Yeah.
So in terms of, we've got a lot of listeners who are undergrads. So can you break down luminescence dating for them in an easy, sort of understandable way? And sure. I'm saying this and I'm blaming the undergrads. Actually, I just want you to do it for me.
Okay. No, with pleasure. So the easiest way to think of it is every quartz and feldspar grain is a battery. So quartz and feldspar, they're very common stones. You find them all over in the world, in fact, specifically a lot in like South Africa, if you're just walking down the road, you'll see like these shiny little milky little pebbles. And what we do is each one of those is a battery. And when it's exposed to the sun, it is zero charge. It is considered to be completely bleached. And the battery is on 0%. When it gets buried, over time, it uses surrounding radiation of different isotopes, things like thorium and uranium and rubidium and potassium, and to recharge itself. So it has this ability, it would be like a self-recharging battery. And underground, it recharges itself using all the surrounding radiation. We then carefully extract the samples without re-exposing it to light. That's quite important. Is like, if it's been exposed to light, it's just going to go to zero again. And we measure the time that it takes to recharge that battery. And we measure the percentage it's recharged and how long it would take to recharge to that point. And that gives us the age. So we're just dividing percent recharged divided by rate at which it recharges. And that tells us when that sediment was last exposed to light. So this is really good for stratigraphy. It's very good for like if you've got in more LSA sites, floors or terraces where you've got layers. Can also be used for pottery because you can also date when something was exposed last to heat, which is over 300 degrees Celsius. And sometimes even lithics, they have applied thermoluminescence, which is a heat component to heat, to lithics that have been exposed to heat. And so we're just simply checking what percentage it's been recharged, and that tells us what it is. I hope that makes a bit of sense.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jana. That's a good explanation. I like the battery analogy that you use there. It's quite a good one. But I just wanted to ask, before we started the chat, you were talking, about your master's research and stuff, and I just want to see if I've got this correct. So you were saying for your master's research, you were looking at Wonderwerk Cave and Pineal as well, along the Vaal River. What were you doing at Pineal? Sorry, that's very interesting because both Tim and myself have done research at Kantinkopje. It's a site that's very close to our heart and stuff. So we've done some work on the Stone Age and the Vaal River Basin. So I'm quite curious to hear what work you were doing at Pineal.
Yeah, so Pineal is a smaller component of the project. And while I was working with Michaela Ecker, who's running the excavation there. And it was sort of, while I'm in the region and doing Wonderwerk, it would be nice to have another comparison site. And she is trying to see if she can find the MSA layers and strata, and had brought on a whole bunch of teams of scientists to do different analyses. And so I was just part of that group where rather than doing a thorough analysis, I was dating 3 layers. I think I did 5 samples in total to try and see whether this was a new exposure or an erosion, or try and figure out the site formation processes. Luminescence is quite useful also for site formation processes, as opposed, and not just initial in situ deposition. So radiocarbon will always tell you the date of the object you are dating, and luminescence rather tells you when that object was deposited because you're dating the sediment surrounding it.
Perfect. Sorry. I must apologize to everybody. I literally only indicated the time now in the chat box. Sorry about that. I completely forgot. Ruby, just a follow-up question. Yeah, we've still got time. Regarding Wonderwerk,
you didn't get the timing right.
Sorry.
We're talking dating, and you couldn't get the timing right.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Ruby, just to get back to Wonderwerk. Okay, so Pineal was just a small component. With Wonderwerk, what levels were you working in? I gather you were doing dating in strata kind of 5 to 8. Those less than 1 million layers and stuff. And I mean, what kind of strata were you focusing on?
So I was focusing on excavation 1, and I did have stratas. I went right through to the base of the current excavation. Part of the project was to test the viability of this new technique, and the project's extended now past my master's, and it needs some physicists involved as well because it is a new methodology. And it's in feldspar grains, there is the potential to go well over 1 million years. And so we were trying to test whether this technique works in this context and how to get this technique to work, because it would be incredible if we could have a reliable dating methods on ESA strata with such a common mineral. So Wonderwerk was, it's been a while since I looked at the project, but the strata went pretty much from 5 through to quite a few down, and then I did one from excavation 2 on the MSA stuff there. And that was to cross compare with Naomi Porat in Israel, who's been doing the other luminescence work there, also with feldspar grains. And then I did a little bit of OSL, which is the traditional technique, just to check everything was running smoothly.
Okay. Because I was just curious, because I know obviously with some of the other strata at the site as well, they've used cosmogenics, they've used paleomagnetism as well. So I was just trying to work out where your kind of dating was fitting in with those results.
Yeah. So this is to cross compare because it's such a new technique. It is also to use, because Wonderwerk is so exceptionally well dated, it's to use it as a way to monitor whether the methodology is working. Because it would be super exciting if we can get this to work, and be fantastic. And I think there is a really big project in the works with the team in Oxford and I think UCT to try and get, and New York now, to get this methodology to work. And it would be incredible to do it. So dating it on a well-dated site is imperative in the beginning.
Sure, no, absolutely. I suppose it lets you kind of establish your baselines as well. But maybe just to throw a bit of a spanner in the works, having worked within the Vaal River Basin and my own research in the Eastern Cape, using cosmogenics. Why luminescence dating versus cosmogenic dating? Now, obviously, I know we're dealing with issues in terms of depth of time. But just your kind of overall perspective on the different techniques?
I know almost nothing about cosmogenic. I did a quick review of it in my master's, as in this is stuff that has been done. It's not something that I've really had the opportunity to be exposed to. It would be super cool if I did. But just to be honest, I can't really comment there.
Okay, no worries.
Sorry, and then just in terms of collection strategies, if you're going to look at dating strata or floors or horizons like that, would someone like yourself need to be on site to collect these samples, or are there methods that archaeologists can use to collect it themselves?
There are methods archaeologists can use. I think one thing that I'm particularly interested in is always working closely with the lab that you are getting samples with, and going in with a chronological approach, as if you were getting a stratigrapher to come and view the stratigraphy and do a write-up. Sometimes you get samples that either aren't viable or aren't going to give you the information you want, just from not understanding the context. Generally, for luminescence dating, there are 2 methods. I prefer the one where you take a essentially steel or plastic tube and you bash it into your very nice sections and cover up the edges, which gets people a bit twitchy sometimes, but that is, for me, the most secure way of ensuring that you are not going to have the inside section is not going to be exposed to light, and we can date that inside section. The way you can do it is you can essentially cover yourself in blankets at night and scrape into a bag. Personally, I think rather work with a team and get yourself some tubes to take the sampling, just because you're much more liable when you're doing that to have mixing of grains and possibly have part of the section that was exposed to light falling in, and then you can't separate it. Whereas in the tube, we just remove the outer 2 centimeters of the tube, and that's removing any of the exposure. It's relatively simple to take a sample, but I do think it is best to just discuss with the lab in advance the strategy that you want to take, and the storage, to make sure that you're not going to get over 200 degrees, but making sure that it's all nice and dark and there won't be any light leaks.
Okay. And then this kind of stuff is extending into your PhD, is that correct?
Yeah.
So what do you do for your PhD?
I'm moving now sort of in between the LS farmer period and ESA into the MSA. And I'm going to hopefully be looking at interior sites, and trying to get a strong chronology for understanding the interior. I hopefully will be going out. I saw you spoke to Brian Stewart, so hopefully I'll be working with him next year if the pandemic is permitting, and getting some really nice, strong chronology for the interior. Okay. We've got a really strong understanding of what's happening on the coastal sites, but there hasn't been as much interest into the dates in the interior.
So what's your goal with getting the dates? I mean, obviously it's great to have nice chronology, but are there specific things? Are you looking at specific periods of innovation, periods of change, or are you looking at things more generally and then comparatively?
So for me, the first goal is to establish where the chronology is currently and where the gaps are, which is what I've been doing the last few months because I haven't been able to get any samples. Then what I would like to do is I would like to be using geospatial analysis and GIS to map trends within different lithics and environmental trends, and trying to understand what's going on using a combination of Bayesian statistics. I'm working with Christopher Ramsey, who normally does radiocarbon, and sort of trying to understand what is happening geospatially along the landscape using a really tight chronology.
Okay, so that's to track changes that's occurring during the Middle Stone Age period, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And you've mentioned the geospatial a couple of times. Now, this is something that's developed because of the pandemic. So is that's part of your response to conducting field-based research at a time of pandemic?
It's my response to I may not get samples or as many samples as I would like, and I need to re-specialize by learning statistics and data analysis. I've always loved GIS, but I've never really gone beyond making a few simple, pretty maps. And it's very much a response to, okay, the world is ending. And this was a realization I had in Oxford. I had 2 weeks leave for my graduation, and then it was the first week of March, and it was like, oh, hold on, the world is starting to end. And Oxford just shut down. I mean, it became a ghost town. Yeah. And it was within that I realized, okay, my project had already gone through quite a few revisions at that point because of different issues. And it was like, okay, I need to make a plan for what happens if I can't get to a site this year. Not at the time thinking this may extend onto where we are now. And I started going through the papers and creating a database based on Loftus et al. Bill's radiocarbon database. I'm creating an equivalent luminescence database for the MSA.
Okay. So a lot of those samples that you need, do you have access to the samples, or do they still need to be collected, and have some of them been dated for your database?
So at the moment I'm using, I think I've got over 700 luminescence ages in Southern Africa for the MSA. Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's been previously published in other research.
Yeah.
And I would like to create an overarching review of this, a systematic review of exploring what has been done before. So that's the first step. I would really, really like interior sites on my own, and I would really like to date the sites on my own. So I've got 6 samples from Elikani, which has already been well dated, and this would be linking Carter's Trench to Stuart's, the new projects, and exploring that. But I would also would like to get more for it, many more. And if I could get more, I would like to get 10 sites, but we will see what pandemics allow and what permissions allow.
Ruby, thanks very much. If I could maybe just jump in here. You mentioned a couple of minutes back about, luminescence dating is also very handy when, dealing with contextual issues, stratigraphy, stuff like that, or just dealing generally with site formation, which is something that always pricks up my ears because I really enjoy it. You can currently see Tim's eyes glazing over right now, but don't worry about that. I wanted to ask, in terms of the Middle Stone Age interior sites, because obviously we know that the Cape Coastal, the MSA record is absolutely incredible. The sites down there, we've had a couple of discussions with some researchers working down there, and we're just blown away by the record down there. Obviously the contextual preservation conditions down there were very good. So there's preservation of organics and all sorts of stuff. The issue, obviously, and I'm sure this is something you're realizing now, is with the Middle Stone Age sites in the interior, there's just fewer of them. And I was going to ask, have you identified specific MSA sites already that should COVID allow you to travel to do fieldwork? Have you identified, Rose Cottage Cave as an example, Strathallan perhaps, any other sites in Lesotho, maybe even Floraspot as well, in terms of getting those Middle Stone Age dates? Because I'm just trying to think about the sites that are better preserved from a contextual perspective, MSA sites?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm mostly looking at Lesotho. And to be honest, this has been another part of the pandemic, which has been quite heartbreaking, is 1 week you have a site that you think you can go out and look at or speak to someone, and then the next week, it's just not a possibility. It would be great. I am hoping to go to Sahonghong and Melkani as well. And there are two others, and I'm not going to butcher their names, I'm afraid. Which is part of my problem when you're just doing this in your room on your own. You don't have anyone to cross-reference these things with.
So are they still in Lesotho though as well, or
those are in Lesotho? Yeah. Okay. I would love to, if there was a site in the cradle. I was having discussions with Macaron about this, but there have been complications. So I would love to have not only highland sites, but also sites more in the Highveld and interior, more conventional interior. It's just a matter of access for me at the moment. I really was only 4 months into my PhD when the pandemic hit, and my brain sort of went on hiatus for a few weeks or months. So I think as many other people's. And so for me, it's a matter of access. If anyone has MSA sites that they would like someone to date, I would be very honored and pleased. Yeah. That's completely self-promotion, but I'm happy to share my previous research so you can trust me. But or if, at this point, it's a matter of understanding that for me, at the least, with interior sites, we can get minimum ages, so we can see when the deposit happened, and they can provide us a minimum age, which, while isn't as nice as having primary deposition, is at least a cool thing to have that go, okay, at some point this eroded into here, and we can reconstruct that erosion process.
That's really interesting. Thanks for the chat. I think we're sort of going to start running out of time any minute now, but really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to us, and congrats again on the award. That's really awesome. I think everyone's very proud of all 5 of you for getting this award. It's great. Good luck with the PhD. Yeah, it's tough times. It certainly is, but I'm sure you'll get through it. It's all we can do, really, I suppose. And yeah,
I suppose it surpasses innovation and new techniques. So exactly, I'm definitely considering things on how to approach things in ways I wouldn't have if I just had easy access in July, gone to Lesotho, had 6 sites and gotten 100 samples. Yeah, it would be a very different project.
Yeah, so. That's true. Yeah. No, but thank you so much. It's been great chatting to you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ruby.